around us. Whatever we can touch, whatever we can feel, whatever occupies a space, whatever has mass, whatever has a volume, whatever has a weight, all these things are called matter. So everything around us is in some form matter. Matter can have different states like solid, liquid, or gas. Matter is made up of tiny particles called substances. We have seen when these particles or substances are closely bound to each other, we call it a solid. When their space in between is little bit more, we call it as liquid. And the space is enormous and the particles are freely floating, we call it as a gas. So, what we can see, what occupies space, what can be perceived by senses is called matter. Matter is made up of tiny particles called substance. Substance that we see around us are in different states, solid, liquid, and gas. Some are pure and some are impure, like salt and water. Salt can be considered as pure when it is only sodium chloride, while water can be considered as impure because water may have dissolved impurities. That is why we boil the water before we drink. We have to filter it. Some substances are mixed naturally, some are mixed consciously. Example, the water in the pond is polluted due to various reasons. It's a natural mix. While when we make a sambar or when we make a tea, it is called conscious mixing of different substances to form a mixed substance. We say silk material is smooth. We say salt as a substance is soft. But we cannot use the words material, matter, and substance interchangeably. Though they are all very closely related, we cannot use the words material, substance, and matter interchangeably. Material refers to a particular kind of matter, like silk or paper. Material refers to a particular kind of matter. Matter is anything that has weight, occupies a space, and can be perceived. Matter is anything that has mass, so has weight, that occupies space, so has a shape and volume, and can be perceived. That means can be touched or seen, like a copper or cotton. Substance is a matter of a specific kind of particles. Substance is a matter of specific kind of particles. Pure substance or mixed substance. Pure means pure as gold, or mixed means polluted as river water, which has mineral, salts, and other things dissolved in it. Matter. Matter has mass, matter occupies space, matter can be sensed, we know that. Now, what do we mean by saying matter has mass? Mass means mass of a piece of matter gives us idea of the quantity of matter present. So the characteristic of a matter represented by mass is that mass of a piece of matter gives us an idea of the quantity of matter present. For example, if one stone is 100 gram and another stone is 1000 gram, then the smaller stone will be 100 gram, the bigger stone will be 1000 gram. We will mean the smaller stone is lighter and the bigger stone is heavier. The quantity of matter in the bigger stone is more, that is why it is heavier. The quantity of matter in the smaller stone is less, that is why it is lesser. Why we say the quantity of matter is less? Because the mass is less. Why the mass is less? Only because the mass is less, the gravitational pull on that mass is less. That is why the weight is less. So, mass of a piece of matter gives us an idea of the quantity of matter present. If there is more quantity, there will be more mass. If there is more mass, there will be more weight. This is about the mass. Now, property of matter occupies space. How does it help us understand matter? The space occupied by matter gives us an idea about the actual volume the matter has. The space occupied by the matter gives us an idea about the actual volume the matter has. For example, 500 ml glass holds less water than a 1000 ml glass. A 5 ml syringe has more than a 2 ml in a syringe. So, this is about the space occupied. Now, energy does not require space. For example, energy does not require space. But is energy a matter? It's a sort of form of matter. What is energy? Sunlight is energy. Heat is energy. These are different forms of energy. We sense heat. We see sunlight. Though we can see and though we can sense And because matter occupies, or matter is something that can be sensed, heat and light are matter. But we can see or feel heat and light. It does not occupy space. We cannot see how much mass it has, but it has energy. Heat and light are energy. What has mass and occupies space can be seen. But heat and light does not have mass, does not occupy space, but we can sense it, sunlight and heat. These are forms of energy. Now coming to grouping based on similarity. Grouping things based on some common property or characteristic is called classification. Grouping things based on some common property or characteristic is called classification. So when we group substances based on similarity, we call it as classification of substances. Grouping of substances based on similarity. What is the similarity? Particles of more than one kind is present in a mixture. If it is in pure form, there is nothing to classify it as pure. But if it is in mixed form, then if the particles of more than one kind is present, then it is called mixed. When particles of more than one kind is present, it is called mixed. When particles of no more than one kind, that is only one kind, is present, then it is called pure. So particles of one kind is present, it's called pure. Particles of more than one kind is present, it is called mixed. Now, based on similarity, what is a pure substance? Particles of only one kind. There is no impurity, so there is only one particle. It is of uniform composition throughout. Definite set of properties are there for that particle and unique to this matter. It cannot be further simplified into simpler substances easily by physical method. This particular substance cannot be further simplified by physical method, but mostly by chemical means it is possible to make it more simple. Rice with no husk or wheat with no stone or chalk piece can be called as pure substance. Why we call rice as a pure substance? Maybe because there are no stones, no husk, no impurity, so it is called pure if it is only rice. Now why it cannot be further simplified? Rice cannot be further simplified by simpler substance, simpler physical methods. It can be simplified by chemicalism. What is it? You can crush it, you can grind it, you can boil it and steam it, and then it will change the way it is. But then by physical methods, you cannot further simplify it. It has a definite set of properties. All rice will be of similar length when you take a handful of rice. It will be of almost a similar weight. It will be of almost similar content. So that is called a definite set of properties, and it is unique to this matter. A particular type of rice grain, whatever breed or whatever species it will be unique to that matter. The set of properties, the characteristics. It is uniform in composition throughout. All rice is of the same type when you take a handful of rice. We are not talking about all the rice in the world. We are talking about the sample on hand. There is no impurity. This is grouping based on similarity. Now, when we consider mixed substances, the thing is particles of more than one kind is present. Particles of more than one kind is present. That's the most important difference between a pure substance and a mixed substance. Particles of more than one kind is present. The composition of matter may not be uniform. The composition of matter may not be uniform. If you're taking wheat with husk, husk will be of different size and shape, wheat will be of different size and shape. Properties of the matter are properties of the constituents. Husk will have its own property, stones and sand will have its own property, wheat grains will have its own property. That is the components of the mixture. Properties of the constituents. Constituents is nothing but components of the mixture, the mixed substance. And the mixed substances will be in variable proportion. It is not that the wheat and the chaff and the husk, all those things will be in equal mixture. It will be in variable proportion. More than one substance is mixed in random fashion such that each substance retains its unique characteristic. When we call something as a mixed substance, what has happened is that more than one substance is mixed in random fashion such that each substance retains its unique characteristic. The composition of this mixed substance can be varied by adding some more of some of the substances. The composition can be varied by adding some more of some of the substances. For example, you can add more stone, you can add more husk, You can add more wheat. This mixed substance is mostly separated by physical methods. Mostly can be separated by physical methods. Now in a pure substance we needed chemical methods. Here we can separate by physical methods. What are the various examples? Take a cup of tea. A cup of tea has a little bit of milk, a little bit of sugar, a little bit of water. This is what a cup of tea is. If it is coffee, then you will have a mixture of coffee powder also in it. If it is a tree, if it is a tea, the tea leaves might have got drained. So these are the various things in a cup of tea. If you look at medicine, there are lot many chemical compounds inside a medicine pill. If you look at cake, you may have dough, you may have eggs, you may have cream, you may have butter, you may have so many things into that cake. So these are all mixed substances. What is only the person who is doing a thorough analysis will know. Now coming to identification. How do we identify the substances? We study the properties. If it is water, we study that water well. Is it mixed water? Is it casually mixed? Is it naturally mixed? From where we got? We will study the characteristics, the properties of the water. And then we compare the property with the known substances. We know about certain things. We don't know about everything under the sky. We know about certain things. So when we get a mixture, when we get a mixed substance, we try to learn its, study its characteristic, the properties, and then compare with the known substances. For example, you have a liquid and you try to boil it and it is boiling at say 100 degrees centigrade. Then you will think this is something similar to water because water's boiling point is 100 degrees. If it boils at 70 degrees, then you will say this is something similar to alcohol because you know alcohol boils at 70 degrees. So you compare the existing property of a given mixed substance and then try to compare it with what you already know. If it is water, probably it boils at 100 degrees centigrade. Likewise, it freezes at 0 degrees centigrade. So this is how we identify the substances. Now, what are the different types of mixtures? When we say a mixed substance is a random mixture of more than one kind of substance to form an undivisible part. That is what we have seen as a mixed substance. We have seen more than one substance mixed in random fashion such that each substance retains its unique characteristic. So it has a different components in the mixture. The properties are based on these components. The composition is not uniform. The composition will be in variable proportion and then they can be separated by physical method. This is what we have seen. So what are the types of mixture? It can be separated. Different types of mixture can be classified. What is classification? Based on the characteristic or based on its property, trying to put them in various groups of similarity in property. So based on physical state, we can have mixture as solid-solid mixture, wheat and stones, liquid-liquid mixture, petrol and diesel, solid liquid mixture, sugar and milk. So we can have types of mixture based on physical state of the constituent, solid, liquid, solid, liquid, etc. Now based on the solubility of the components. What is solubility? Solubility means whether a solute will dissolve in a solvent to give a solution. This is solubility. Now heterogeneous. Heterogeneous means not uniformly distributed. Different types of things are in different proportion is heterogeneous. What is homogeneous? Homogeneous means uniformly distributed. Everywhere you will find a small portion of every component. When you mix sugar in milk, every part of milk will sweet like will be sweet because of sugar. Will taste like sugar. Will taste sweet. When you mix sugar on milk, it is not that top portion of the glass will be sugary, the bottom portion of the glass will not be sweet. It won't be like that. Heterogeneous means not uniformly distributed. When you take a handful of soil, you may have more of sand, or you may have more of silt, or you may have more of the decayed animal and plant products, that is a humus. So it depends. So this is a heterogeneous. So based on solubility, we call it as heterogeneous or homogeneous, and based on physical state, we call it as solid, liquid, or solid and liquid. Now we know mixed substances means mixture of multiple substances. We know some can be separated by chemical reactions, some by physically, and we know that these are different components actually. If it is a sand plus oil plus water plus a decayed animal parts, or if it is milk and sugar, these are different substances. We need the substances for many purposes. We need the matter, we need the substance, we need the particles, we need the material for different substances, different purposes. Mostly these substances contain impurities. Whatever we need, mostly it contains impurities. For example, if you take a very extreme example, we have to dig out or mine ores. So metals and minerals are mined from the mother earth. So you have an iron ore. Likewise, you have to mine coal or bauxite from the earth. From the when you dig out and then you take out, you get coal, you get bauxite. What is bauxite? Bauxite is aluminium ore. What is aluminium ore? You dig out something from the earth and when you process it, at the end of the day, you get aluminium after throwing out a lot of waste. So this means what? We get lot of matter from Mother Earth, but these substances contain certain impurities. These are not exactly the substance that you need for a specific given purpose. Maybe you are looking for gold for jewelry, maybe you are looking for iron and steel for making machinery, maybe you are looking for cotton to make a cloth. Now, cotton doesn't come naturally. Cotton will have a seed in between. Cotton will have a shell. If you look at silk, silk will come in the form of a silkworm thread. Cocoon of a silkworm worm will be inside. So, matter comes in nature as multiple substances. We need to separate them. What we mean by separation? Removal of undesirable harmful substances is called separation. Or extraction of only desirable useful substances is called separation. Separation is either removal of undesirable harmful substance or extraction of useful desirable substance from a given mixture of substances. Now, useful substances are obtained by separating them from the mixture. For example, cereals contain small stones or husks. Crude oil is a mixture of oils and chemicals. Why do we say crude oil is a mixture of oils and chemicals? When you process the crude oil, it is called refining. When you put a crude oil through a refinery process, what you get is you get aviation fuel, you get petrol for cars, you get diesel for trucks, then you get kerosene for lighting lamps, and then you get various other petrochemicals from wax to tar to polymers to plastic. You get a hell lot of things from crude oil. When you process the crude oil, the process is called refining. So it is not just petrol or diesel or kerosene, it's a mixture of a lot of things. Water contains salts, minerals, microbes, and dirt. When you take a glass of water from a pond or a river, it contains salts, minerals, microbes, and dirt. There are various methods of separation, different methods of separation. How is that we know matter in nature comes as a mixture of substances and we have to extract either the useful thing or eliminate the harmful substance. We need to know about methods of separation. Depending on the characteristic or property of the substance, they can be separated in many ways. Depending on the characteristic or property of the substance, they can be separated in many ways. Based on the differences in physical properties, you can either handpick or sieve or winnow or sediment. You can even decant, evaporate, distill, filter, or centrifuge. These are the various methods of separation. Sieving. Solid solid. When you have a solid solid, you can have a sieving, especially when some particles are big and some particles are small. When substances are made up of big and small particles, you can use sieving. When the components are of different size, using a sieve or a strainer. One good example of sieving is you will use it when you are using the flour to make chapati or atta. Another thing is when you are straining the tea leaves while making the tea brew. So size of the hole or pore in the sieve depends on size of the component to be retained or allowed through. When you are trying to sieve flour, what comes through is used as a useful product. When you are doing or straining tea, what comes out of the sieve is used as a useful product. What is retained in is considered as an impurity, the tea leaves, and that is thrown away. So you use a strainer or a sieve, then you put something inside. What comes out is considered as a useful part. That is why the size of the hole or pore is depending on the size of the component to be allowed through. Some components are allowed to pass through and some are retained. Let us look at winnowing. You would have seen farmers doing this winnowing. When there is a solid solid mixture and one of them is light and the other one is heavy. What do we mean by that? When you have a wheat and a chaff or a wheat and a husk, the husk is light and the wheat is heavy. So when there is a wind blowing, the heavier part will fall down closer to you because of the density, and the lighter portion or lighter component will fly away, will be carried away by the wind. So winnowing is based on different weights or density of the components of the mixture, solid-solid mixture. With the help of the wind, it is thrown from a height. The size and weight of the component and speed of the wind will determine how do we do this. So some of the component will fall down closer to you, some of the component will fly away. Whatever fly away is considered as impurity or unwanted. Whatever falls closer to you is considered as useful and wanted material, because we know wheat is heavier than the chaff in this situation. So this is called winnowing. Another method that we do is hand picking. When there are only few impurities and it can be easily identified, and when the proportion of impurities compared to the usual portion is very large, very much multiple, 1% is impurity types, in a solid situation, when less is impurities and more is the useful part, you go for the hand picking. You pick up stones from the rice or wheat. You pick up the good ones after a harvest out of the bad ones in case of a fruit. All this is hand picking with the help of hand based on judgment. It is slow and it is possible only if it is a small quantity. But then for picking out the stones from the dal before cooking, hand picking is the best method of separation. Sedimentation and decantation. Sedimentation is allowing to settle down of insoluble heavy suspended particles. Sedimentation is allowing to settle down insoluble heavy suspended particles, and the decantation is pouring out the clearer liquid. Decantation is pouring out the clearer liquid. Now take a case of muddy water. Allow the water to stand in a beaker for some time. After the standing time, the sand and the silt and the mud gets collected at the bottom because of density. The sand, the silt and the mud gets collected at the bottom because of the density. Above that there will be a little bit of dirty water, and above that there will be clearer water. There will be clear water on the top of the beaker because the silt and sand has got settled down below. So this water has to be poured gently into another beaker. So sedimentation is allowing settling down of insoluble heavy suspended particles. Decantation is pouring of the clearer liquid when you have a mixture of sand or oil or um, soil mixed in water, and when you have to separate it. You can do this for oil also, depending upon how dense oil or water is compared to the different types of oil that you add to make the mixture and that you want to separate. Coming to filtration. Filter is a porous material allowing only liquid to pass through and retain the solid. It is a different type of strainer, but in strainer you have holes. In a filter, it is porous material. It is not exactly holes, it's a porous material allowing only liquid to pass through and retain the solid. So you can use a cloth, you can use a filter paper, different types of filters are there in the market. Tea leaves are separated using a strainer, we can say, when the holes are very small. Now, when you filter, what are the names of different components? What remains is called the residue. What is allowed to let through the filter paper is called filtrate. What is allowed to let through is called filtrate. What remains in the filter paper is called residue. It is mostly used to separate insoluble solids. If it is already dissolved in water, salt or sugar, you cannot separate it. So solid and liquid mixture, when you throw filter paper in a conical vessel, what you get as into the conical vessel is called filtrate. What gets remaining into the filter is called residue. Coming to evaporation, another method of separation, one of the popular things that we do is at a lab scenario, we try to slightly heat the mixture, and then when it is heated, what happens? If it is a water, the water will get evaporated and go away. That is called the vapor of the solvent. Then the solute that got dissolved will remain. When you heat a solution, the solvent will evaporate and go away. For example, if it is water, and the solute will remain. That solute is what you want to collect it. That is evaporation. In a natural setting, what happens is you collect salt water in salt pans. You collect salt water from the sea in salt pans, and then allow it to evaporate with the help of heat of the solar energy, the heat of the sun. So because of the hot sun, the water will evaporate. It will leave behind only the salt. So this is the salt that we get from the seawater by allowing the seawater to evaporate in the salt pans. Hotter it is, easier is the evaporation. Hotter it is, faster is the evaporation. The drying of the clothes when put in air is also evaporation. When you put it in the hot in the sun, because of the heat and because of the air, the water is carried away, leaving behind the shirt. This is also a form of evaporation. Centrifugation. Centrifugation means to churn. So you would have seen in good old days, people churned the buttermilk to create butter out of it. Now, particles of different densities in a homogeneous solution, when rotated fast, denser ones try to go to close to the greater radius. When particles are rotated fast, when they have different density, the denser ones try to get close to the greater radius. The denser ones will try to get close to greater radius, and the less denser ones will stay close. So after some time, what happens is all the denser particles will be farther in the circle, farther from the center, and the less denser ones will be closer to the center. And when you stop this centrifugation, what happens is the particles will get collected. The denser ones will get separately collected, and the lighter ones will get separately collected. So what you see here is a centrifugation instrument where before the particles are like this, after the particles are like that. The pellets are collected separately, suprematte is collected separately in this situation. The rotation, this is the armored casing for rotation of the or centrifugation. So the particles are getting collected here. Before it is distributed like this. That is why we call it as a mixture, mixed substance. And after centrifugation, the solid substance is insoluble or soluble, whatever it is, based on the density, they get collected. Denser ones get collected. For example, cream and milk. Looking at the methods of separation, only pure distilled water are used for medicinal use. Now, how do we get this pure liquid water from a liquid mix? Water is available in nature in a form in which there is possibly many salt, many other chemicals mixed to it, many impurities are there in water. So, lots of things will be in the water. Even if it is a rainwater, what happens is because of the impurities in the air, it gets mixed to the water. So when you have such situation and when you need only pure distilled water for medicinal use, how do you get that pure liquid from a mixture of liquid? One example is heat slowly so that the component with the lower boiling point becomes vapor first. Collect that vapor. Condense it quickly so that it becomes solid and goes away. It can be used or collected or whatever it is. But when you are heating slowly, the first liquid will evaporate based on boiling point, the rest will remain. When you keep on increasing temperature, another liquid will reach its melting boiling point and it will get evaporated. So like this, one after another, different liquids will evaporate because of the heat. We can collect it and then condense it, that is quickly cool it to convert it back into liquid and use it as appropriate. This is one of the methods of distillation. Now, in distillation, what is happening is in a lab situation, you can distillate multiple liquids. In natural situation, what happens is three-fourths of the earth is sea, ocean. The water in the ocean is salty. It's a mixture of multiple salts and impurities. This water, because of the heat of the sun, evaporates. When it evaporates, only water goes up. It becomes vapor, pure vapor. It goes up. It becomes cloud, and then it precipitates and falls down as rain. So when it becomes cloud, it is in very pure form. When it falls as rain, it is in very pure form because it involves the evaporation effect. But when it falls down as rain, on the way, it collects the dirt and dust and other particles that are suspended in the atmosphere. Maybe smog, maybe vehicle emission particulates. It will collect everything in the atmosphere, and by the time it reaches and falls in your face, it is not as pure as it is in the cloud. So this is what happens. So the water in the sea evaporates, becomes a cloud, condenses, and because of precipitation falls down as rain. This is distillation. Methods of separation are different types. Now, as you have seen here, the heading should have been distillation. Methods of separation. Stones, hand picking is one method of separation. Salt by evaporation is another. If it is sand, you can do sedimentation, decantation, or filtration. If there are iron filings, you can do magnet. If it is sawdust, you can do winnowing. If it is oils, you can use a funnel based on different densities. You have to do a funnel distillation. Funnel distillation. It is called refining. And then, if it is a cream or a curd, you can do churning. So different materials based on their properties, based the substances, the component mixture, you will have different methods of separation. Thank you for listening. We will quickly go through what we have seen in this session and close this. So matter is something that occupies space, has volume and shape, has mass, and so has weight, and can be perceived by senses. It can be touched or seen or felt. Matter is made up of tiny particles called substances. Substance, what we see around, is in one of the three states: solid, liquid, or gas. Some are pure, some are impure. That is called mixed substance. We say silk material is smooth or paper is soft, but material refers to a particular kind of matter. Matter is anything that has weight and occupies space and can be perceived, like copper and cotton. And substance is matter of a specific kind. Substance is a matter of a specific kind of particles. So we call it as a pure as gold or polluted as a river. Substance is a matter of a specific kind of particles. Matter has mass. Mass of a piece of matter gives us an idea about the quantity of matter present, that is 10 gram versus 10 kilogram. Matter has space. The space occupied gives us an idea about the actual volume, 50 ml versus 50 liters. Matter can be perceived by sense. We can feel the heat and cold, but heat and cold doesn't have space or doesn't have mass. So these are different forms of energy. Sunlight is a form of energy. Sunlight also gives heat. So these are different forms of energy. They don't occupy space, but they can be sensed sometimes. Matter can be classified. Classification means grouping by similarity, that is grouping based on some common property. Classified as what? Classified as pure when there are no particles other than one, and classified as mixed when there are particles more than one. Coming to grouping based on solitary, we call it as a pure substance when particles of one kind only is present. There is no impurity, uniform composition throughout, definite set of properties unique to this matter, cannot be further simplified other than by chemical methods. Rice with no husk is one example. Regarding mixed substances, particles of more than one kind is present. Composition of the matter may not be uniform. Properties are the properties of constituents, not a unique property. That is, different components have different properties. The components are in variable proportion, more than one substance, mixed in a random fashion, such that each substance retains its unique characteristic. It is called a mixed substance. The composition of substance can be changed by adding one or more substances. Mostly they can be separated by physical methods. Example, iron, even if part of mixture, is attracted by magnet. Salt, even if dissolved in water, retains its taste. Seawater is a mixture of many salt. Lake water is a mixture of many impurities. Soil is a mixture of different types of sand. All these are mixed substances. Identification, we can compare the property of known substances with the property of the mixed substance and try to identify them. For example, if a substance boils at 100 degrees centigrade, we know water also boils at 100 degrees centigrade, so it may be water. There are different types of mixtures. We can classify them or segregate them based on the similarity, that is based on physical state of the constituent. What is physical state? Solid, solid, like wheat and stone. Liquid, liquid, like petrol and diesel. Solid, liquid, like salt and water. Then we can make them different types by based on solubility of the component. That is heterogeneous. Heterogeneous means multiple, not uniformly distributed component or substances. Homogeneous means uniformly distributed substances. Sugar and milk, every part of milk will taste equally sweet. Soil is heterogeneous mixture. Then separation. We need substances for various purposes. Substances available in nature are not in pure form. So we have to separate the impure from the pure. We have to extract the useful portion. This is called separation. Separation can be in chemical or separation can be physical methods. Cereals contain stones, or crude oil contains oils and chemicals, or water contains salts and minerals and microbes even. What are the methods of separation? It depends on the characteristic or property of each of the substance in that mixture. There are many ways: hand picking, sieve, winnowing, sediment, decantation, evaporation, distillation, filtration, centrifuge. There are different methods based on the characteristic of the substance that form the components of the mixture. Sieving. Sieving is solid to solid. If one is small and one is big, then we can use the sieve which has holes of different size, and then certain components are let through, which is considered as a useful portion. Certain components are retained, which is considered as a residue to be thrown away. Winnowing: solid and solid, light and heavy. When a wind blows, light particles or lighter substances are flown away in the wind, carried away by the wind, while the heavier substances fall closer to you when you throw the mixture from a height. This is winnowing, separating the wheat from chaff. Hand picking: when the impurity is a small number and when can be easily picked and when there is a less volume to be handled, you do the hand picking. It is slow and can be done for maybe picking out the stones from the dal before cooking. Sedimentation and decantation: when you have a salt mixture, when the mixture is left for some time on a beaker, the sediment or the mud and the salt and the silt and the sand gets collected at the bottom, and then the purer portion will be above the sediment, will be a little bit of mixed water. On the top of it you will have a clearer portion. When you try to pour this clear portion from one beaker to another, it is called decantation, pouring of the clearer liquid without disturbing the sediment below. What is a sediment? Sediment is allowing the settling down of the insoluble heavy suspended particles into a sediment from a mixture. Sedimentation is allowing settling down of insoluble heavy suspended particles. Filtration. What is filter paper? A cloth or a sieve that is used to retain certain things and throw and remove certain others is called a filter. For example, in a tea strainer, tea leaves are called residue, the tea brew is called filtrate, and the strainer is called a filter. This is filtration. Evaporation. Evaporation is because of the heat, the liquid portion becomes the vapor and the other portions of the substances remain there. For example, due to heat of the sun from the seawater, we can make the water evaporate, and then only salt from the seawater will remain as it is. Drying of the cloth is also evaporation due to air taking away the water on the shirt. Centrifugation means to churn particles of different densities in a homogeneous solution. When rotated fast, denser ones try to go close to greater radius and less denser ones stay close to the center. That is how the different particles get separated from a homogeneous solution. When you have a buttermilk, you will find it's of the same taste everywhere. But when you churn it and take it out, the milk or the cream or the butter comes in one portion and the liquid watery portion comes out as another because of the churn. Distillation. You may need only pure water for certain purpose, example medical. How do you take the pure water out? When you have a mixture of different waters, you try to heat them slowly at different boiling points. Different liquid components of this mixture become vapor, and then from the different substances of this mixture become vapor at different points in time, which can be collected and if required suddenly cooled, that is condensation, to bring them back to liquid state, and what remains will be the residue. So these vapors can be used, that is let off can be used one by one and used accordingly. This is distillation, to take the some portion of the liquid from a mixture liquid using heat. In nature, the seawater by of distillation becomes pure water which is in the clouds. But then when it falls as a rain, it may collect the dust and dirt from the atmosphere. Methods of separation: stone, hand picking, salt evaporation, sand sedimentation or decantation or filtration, iron filings, magnets, sawdust winnowing, oils, funnel distillation, cream or curd can be churned. So these are different methods of separation. Thanks for watching this video. Please keep coming back for more such sessions.